Welcome back to College Football Addiction. The Sugar Bowl goes final, and Notre Dame wins 23-10 in a game that they essentially dominated, but also that Georgia just so many mistakes. Marcus Freeman said something that I thought was huge. Hopefully you caught it in the postgame, in the trophy presentation, in the postgame interviews. I'll talk about that in just a minute. But, man, a fun one in the Sugar Bowl, even though, not as high scoring. I mean, I didn't think this would be super high scoring. I thought both teams would be around that 20-point mark. Georgia really should have been outside of, fumble down in the red zone, the having to go for it late. I thought that Georgia played well enough to be around 20 as well. And their mistakes just prove crucial. Like if you sum the whole thing up, like we'll talk about it for 5-10 minutes here tonight. But if you sum it all up, Georgia's mistakes were absolutely crucial. I thought they made enough plays to be in this game. I thought Stockton was better, not better than I thought, because I really had zero expectations, good or bad. It just was such a wild card that you just kind of try and see what happens. But I thought he played well. I didn't think he was terrible. Obviously, I don't even really blame him for the fumble that turned into the Notre Dame touchdown. I think your offensive line has to help you a little bit better there. But I thought, honestly, and we'll talk about this later, but I thought Kirby was outcoached. Maybe one of the first couple times in his career, like that doesn't happen often. Certainly one of the first couple times here recently. That was certainly not what I was expecting. I thought it would be a grinded out game. I didn't think that Georgia would look like the underprepared team. I predicted UGA to win this thing. Notre Dame's, fans, I'll eat the crow. I leaned Georgia in this thing. Thought Notre Dame had a great chance. I thought it came down to how Gunner played. And honestly, I don't think I was probably wrong about that. It didn't really come down to how Gunner played. It was the mistakes around him that likely cost Georgia this game. And no credit away from Notre Dame. They went out and took this thing. They played smart. They played aggressively. They capitalized on mistakes. They didn't turn the ball over. So nothing away from Notre Dame. They capitalized and they cashed in on Georgia's mistakes. They were the more physical team. They were the better prepared team, and they deserve this win. They head to the Orange Bowl now. Early in the game, obviously, just slow, right? Both teams feeling each other out. Georgia's defense, obviously very good to start, made things very difficult on Notre Dame. When things changed for Notre Dame is when they started the quarterback run. When they started running with the quarterback, things started to change for them. Leonard was good running the ball. It set them up for a couple of field goals. And you think, okay, 6-3, you're in pretty good shape. But there were some mistakes early by Georgia. This should have been Georgia going to the half with the lead. If not for a fumble by ETN, which is huge. They looked like they were going to score a touchdown that drive. Even if they didn't and they kick a field goal there, it's probably 6-6 at the end of the half, right? But again, credit to Notre Dame. They're the ones that went out and got that stop. They're the ones that went out and forced that fumble. They're the ones that went out and put the pressure on UGA. So I'm not trying to take it just one-sided. Oh, it's all Georgia's mistakes, but it's both sides. Notre Dame getting that fumble recovery deep in Irish territory was huge. I thought early you saw a couple of slant plays that were big. I thought Texas exploited that pretty well in the SEC championship. But you get to the end of the first quarter, 0-0. Stockton with an absolute dime down to Smith, and they finally catch a ball. And you have a 15-yard penalty. Now, I don't think that 15-yard penalty was the difference in the game or anything, because they went 3 straight plays not being able to run the ball. They didn't run it well twice, and then on the third, they threw the ball away anyway. So I don't know if it really made a difference. I think it would have probably just been a shorter field goal. Maybe they get a touchdown there. Maybe that changes things around a little bit. But I don't know. I don't really blame the kid on the sideline interference. I mean, you can't let that happen. It's certainly a mistake, and you certainly wonder what could have been. But they didn't. The series directly after the penalty, I mean, they didn't really do anything with the ball anyway. I don't know how much differently they would have called that from the 11-yard line versus the 26 or wherever they had to be. So I hated some of the Notre Dame third down calls, some of the quick passes, the wide receiver screens, the one that set up their field goal. I didn't think that was great. But at the end of the day, they did what they needed to do. They got that field goal. Again, UGA got a sack while Notre Dame was driving, and again halted their possession, their progress. And Notre Dame has to settle for a field goal. The fumble by Stockton was obviously huge. The left tackle just got eaten alive tonight. Wasn't good enough. Certainly early in the game, I thought his play did get better as the game went on. I know they rotated a little bit, but yeah, that was tough, right? And Kirby even admitted Kirby's so real, and I don't like many sideline interviews. Kirby is so real, and Laura asked him, "How would you describe the end of the half?" And he said, "We tried to be aggressive, and we probably regret it now." So he was pretty honest. And at 13-3 at the half, you're thinking, okay, Georgia will settle in. They'll find something. The kick return touchdown to go up 20-3 was the backbreaker. Now, it wasn't over then. Obviously, Georgia cut it to 10. But that felt like the backbreaker. It felt like that was probably going to be a bridge too far. And, again, that's Notre Dame going out and taking it. That is Notre Dame going out and taking the game by the horns, right? Big time drop by UGA at one point. However, they overcame that. A 32-yard pass from Stockton to Cash Jones makes it 20-10. And then on the fourth down stuff, right? Georgia stops Notre Dame, but then Notre Dame stops Georgia. And I think that the penalty on Notre Dame ended up helping them. UGA lined up to go for it on fourth. They had a false start, made it 4th and 7. Delay of game on the defense now made it 4th and 2, but they don't get it. I think that penalty probably saved Notre Dame about 30 yards of field position. Now, could have gone in the end of the end zone. Maybe it was only 20 yards of field position, but I think that was a big play, getting the ball near midfield. They kick another field goal, make it 23-10, and obviously that's kind of the way that it ends. The fourth down move by Freeman to sub off and back on. I think the center in that play has an option to snap it if he sees movement. And I think Notre Dame was just looking to honestly make UGA use a timeout, which they clearly should have. There was about 7.5 minutes to go when that happened, and they ended up punting after that drive with about 2 minutes to go. They wasted 5 minutes and all of UGA's timeouts. I just think if Kirby had to do over again, he would have called a timeout. You'd have had Notre Dame punting from near their own end zone, or maybe just feet on the front line of the end zone, the goal line of the end zone. And I think if he had it to do over again, he would have called a timeout there. But again, that's Freeman. In my opinion, that's Freeman out coaching him. Again, really physical game to start. UGA's 2 big mistakes in the first half were crucial. I thought Texas made mistakes in the first half of the SEC championship game that they didn't put the game away when they could have. And Georgia, I don't think they could have put this game away in the first half, but if they score 7, certainly, on the ETN fumble drive, and then they score again to take a 10-0 lead on the long pass down that ended up being the 15-yard penalty. Now, there's nothing saying they would have definitely scored 7 on both those drives. But if they just take a 10-point lead, maybe even just 6-0, or they got the lead or feeling a little bit better, maybe the confidence starts to go their way and the Notre Dame maybe starts to buckle a little bit. I don't know. That was a tough. Their mistakes early certainly hurt them. And then the mistake by Kirby, trying to get points with 30 seconds to go. You have a struggling offensive line. You have a quarterback that doesn't have a lot of experience, and you're trying to push him. I thought the risk way outweighed the reward there. I think that was a massive blunder by Kirby. And he told you that. He told you that on the sideline. That's not me. I was tweeting all night about how Kirby was probably going to make adjustments, and they were probably going to come out in the second half and be right in this thing. And I thought that was a pretty big blunder. Great catch on that, by the way, for the Notre Dame kid. Strong hands to end up pulling that in. Who was that? Collins on that touchdown. That was really, really good for him to be able to pull that in and keep them or take that lead into the half. That 7 there was massive. If you can only get 3 there, I think that's a lot of trouble. Again, Freeman, I thought phenomenal. He was huge. The penalty swap on fourth down, you never know, but by jumping off sides or by having the delay of game, again, I think that helped Texas a ton. The punt play was fantastic. And again, you never really see Kirby outcoached. And the knock on, I don't know if it's as much of a knock on Freeman, but the knock on Notre Dame always is not winning in the big game. And that probably was the knock on Freeman before coming into this year, right? You wonder, they win a lot of games in Notre Dame, right? But you just have these blunders. You have these big moments where you're just like, there's Notre Dame. And they stepped up to the plate, and they absolutely took this thing tonight, and his aggressiveness helped off a ton. I thought that what he admitted in his post-game interviews, and this is probably my biggest takeaway from it, is he said we can call aggressive plays or we can have aggressive play calls, but if the guys don't play aggressively, then it doesn't really matter. And you think about some of the aggressiveness. They went for it on fourth down multiple times. They had And a couple of those, they obviously didn't get them. The punt play, right, where they got Georgia to jump off sides and they took the shot, but obviously the 5-yard penalty got them moving. The reverses, the sweeps, the quarterback runs. I thought they were very aggressive. They trusted their defense. They trusted their corners out in one-on-one, which is what you need to do. They didn't let Georgia's running game beat them, and they were going to say, hey, Stockton, if you can beat us, then great. Sometimes Stockton got some nice rushes off. Sometimes they got beat deep, right? Georgia drops 15-yard penalties on guys staying out of bounds. I mean, that helped Notre Dame for sure. That saved them at times, but I did think that was a big deal. I thought the way that they played aggressively was a big deal. The coached aggressively, was a big deal, but the way they played was too. I thought the most telling, the most aggressive, the best representation of that, when Freeman said that, and he's standing up there on the podium, and I think about that fourth down play, where they call it super aggressively and you get Georgia to jump off there and you get the extra set of downs. And what happens on the very next series after that, right? When Notre Dame still has the ball, Riley Leonard goes out and makes effort to not only get around the edge, he showed some wheels by getting to the edge on a Georgia defense that does not allow guys to get to the edge and hasn't for the last half a decade or more. He got to the edge and then he somersaults over the first down marker. And you're always worried about that. Like, dude, don't land on your head. Don't, break your neck doing this. He somersaults over the first down marker, leaping over guys, and gets the first down. That leads to another first down. And again, that punt play happened with over 7 minutes to go. His aggressive play calling and the aggressive play by Leonard is huge. It made it where they punted the ball with, under the 2-minute warning, and UGA had no timeouts. They would have needed their quarterback with very limited experience to go out there and drive the length of the field twice, plus recover an onside kick and get in the end zone both times. Obviously, they'd only gotten in the end zone one time. And Notre Dame would have been playing prevent defense. Like, the idea of this happening was very, very slim. And that's what it comes down to, right? If they'd have just had to punt right after that, if they'd have had to just kick the ball back to Notre Dame or back to Georgia with 5 or 6 minutes left and Georgia's at the 50, I don't know, maybe they do hit one long pass and they've got a couple of timeouts in the 2-minute warning and maybe they are able to make it competitive. But Freeman's exactly right. It wasn't just aggressive play calling, and he deserves a ton of credit for the absolute huge gonads that he had to pull that off. But I also think that Leonard and this team deserves a ton of credit for how aggressively they played as well. This wasn't a situation where they sat back on their heels and they waited for Georgia to just give them the game, which Georgia did. All of their mistakes finally caught up to them, and they did give Notre Dame all the opportunity in the world to win this game, but they went out and took it too. It wasn't just, hey, we're going to run 3 times and punt. We're going to wait until Georgia makes some mistakes. We're going to try and win this game 13-10. No, none of that. Right? They went out and took it. They went out and played the way that they needed to play, and they were the better team. And so it wasn't just on Freeman's coaching. It wasn't just on the players. It was a total team effort, really in all 3 phases too. Field goal kicker was good. He snuck that last one in just barely by the skin of his teeth. And then obviously the kick return touchdown, a huge play for energy, a huge play for belief at that point of the game. And again, I think that was kind of what broke Georgia's back. They fought back a little bit to make it 20-10. But to me, that was the play of the game. That was maybe not play of the game because the sack strip at the end of the first half was pretty crucial. But just you've gotten that whole halftime to make adjustments to say, hey, we're just down 10. Go out and get a stop. We'll get good field position. We'll go make this a 1-score game. Immediately, that kick return touchdown makes it, oh crap, we're probably dead right now. And they weren't. There was a lot of game left, right? There was almost a full half left. But Notre Dame was aggressive enough on defense. They were aggressive enough on offense to go out and seal this thing. Now Notre Dame moves on to Penn State. I see they're a slight favorite in that game. Early thoughts on that game. I think we're going to get another low-scoring, fun defensive game. I think Notre Dame probably will have to be a little bit better offensively because I think Penn State can put up some points. But I think that's a really interesting matchup. Maybe a slight lean to Notre Dame, but it's probably way too early to have to predict that. So we will get either a Big Ten or an independent team in the national championship on that side of the bracket. Obviously, on the other side, either an SEC or a Big Ten team with Texas and Ohio State. I still think Ohio State is playing the best football of anybody right now in the country, and it's tough to pick against them. They're still my national championship favorite right now, but there are a lot of days in between now and when the national championship will be played, and so don't count anybody out of this thing just yet. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Hey, if you went to the game, what was the vibe like? I'd love to hear some comments on that. If you were on either side of this, what was the vibe like in and around the stadium before the game? Was it a typical scene? I've been to New Orleans. I've partied before games. I've tailgated. I've thrown big tailgates out there in New Orleans. Was it pretty rocking, or because of the week's events was a little bit subdued? Obviously, anybody watching, our thoughts are with you. If you were in New Orleans or if you knew people in New Orleans, I'm sure if you're watching this, you do know some people that traveled to the game and went. Our thoughts are with you guys. Obviously, just tragic acts of cowardice and terrorism around the city. And we certainly are thinking about all those involved. And we argue about football. We talk about football a ton. None of that means anything compared to the lives that were lost. It was a fun game tonight, but it was hard to not think about the people that suffered so much in that city and that knew people in that city, students of both UGA and Bama that were killed and others. We can argue about football all we want until we're blue in the face, and that's fun. And we're going to keep doing it here on College Football Addiction. It was hard to not think about those people that were impacted in such a massive, massive way. And that obviously means so much more than a football game. But appreciate you guys for tuning in. Notre Dame fans, Georgia fans, you guys have been great all year. If you haven't already, we are trying to near that 20,000 subscriber mark. Our 1-year anniversary is coming up in just about 2 weeks. If you wouldn't mind, we would love to have you join us. We will continue to get Notre Dame folks, Georgia folks on through the offseason, through the rest of the playoffs for Notre Dame as well. So don't miss any of our content by doing us a favor and hitting that subscribe button. We certainly would appreciate it. We will talk to you soon here on College Football Addiction.